Welcome to TOA's Dr. Sound Academy. My name is Yaya Maulawi and I'm from TOA Canada Product Development. Today I'm going to present to you the IP-A1 series, TOA's new sophisticated IP audio endpoints. In this webinar, we will focus on what TOA's IP paging system can offer in terms of features, benefits, and application of use. Let's start with an overview of the IP-A1 system. The IP-A1 system consists of IP endpoints individually addressed and configured. The IP-A1 can achieve the basic paging functions and much more by its simplest configuration, with a single speaker that can be programmed to trigger a stored audio file and scheduled to play it or play multiple audio files on daily or weekly basis. It's a minimal PA system in a single speaker assembly. It has a variety of IP endpoints that can be used as independent audio system for a fully integrated audio communication system. And it's a multi-key feature system supporting audio file storage, multi-protocol, audio management for easy configuration and integration. This takes us to the key elements of audio communication. Firstly, we start by identifying the system element that specify when the audio communication is triggered. In our case, we mentioned the sensor alarm, a scheduled timer or manual activation for the audio communication. Then we move to the question of what is the content that's being triggered. It can be a live voice, PA mic, SIP phone, VMS, or even a recorded message or tone. Then the next question is, where is this content played? Is it played for all call system in all zones or all areas, or in a specific zone or area? Or finally, it can be played on a single speaker. This content can be played through a priority management that the IP-A1 system can provide, or simple volume control. In this section, we'll provide you with the series lineup and the key features. We will start by presenting this system on two phases. The phase one will have a broadcasting terminal, which is the IP-A1 PG, the paging gateway, and receiving terminal, which are the speakers, the horn, and the audio interface. We are working and progressing on developing a phase two of this system that includes new items such as remote microphone, the IP-A1 RM, additional features to the existing devices, like the paging gateway will have its scheduler. And finally, on the receiving terminal, we will introduce the IP-A1 PA12H, which is a high impedance 12-watt power amplifier. Let's start with the PG, which is our paging gateway. It can convert SIP audio on this audio back channel and internal audio files or local audio source that is connected to it into multicast streaming. The device is able to do system mute functions to mute all broadcasts made by every single IP-A1 series device within the same network. It has one local audio input, line or mic selectable with a phantom power on off. It has 4 control inputs and 1 control output. It sends and receives HTTP commands. And finally, it has audio file storage with 20 files or total of 80 MB that can be either WAV or MP3. And it is PoE powered, like any IP-A1 device. Next is one of our phase 2 devices, which is the IP remote microphone that will be launched later on. So with the IP remote microphone, you can do SIP calls to SIP server for peer-to-peer, or it has a multicast audio streaming. It has a scheduler, built-in scheduler for audio file broadcasting. It can do event broadcasting by a contact input And finally, it has auxiliary input for background music. Next is the audio interface. The audio interface can receive audio SIP for audio, on-VIF audio backchannel, and multicast. Local broadcast using internal audio files or local audio source. It has one local audio input, line or mic selectable with a phantom power on off. It is 8-watt PoE or 15-watt PoE plus. It has built-in amplifier with one line audio output. It has two control inputs and one control output. It can receive HTTP command. It has 20 files, audio storage with a total of 80 MB. It can do playback programs, repeat with a weekly timer, and it works on PoE or PoE plus power. Reminder, this is the receiving terminal. That's why we mentioned that it receives SIP audio and it can receive HTTP command. It doesn't sound like the other devices that we presented earlier. We will continue with receiving terminals. And this is the phase 2 IP power amplifier, the 12 watts. It has a built-in amplifier, 12-watt high impedance amplifier that has a 100 volt, 70 volt, or 25 volt selections of speaker output. It has a line or mic input enabled. It has internal sound message storage, 20 files again, and maximum of 80 MB. It has two contact input and one contact output. Next is the IP horn speaker, which is quite famous for TOA, as we have high capability in developing horn speakers. This horn speaker has 124 decibel PoE plus powered with IP66 rating for outdoor installations. It receives audio SIP, on-VIF audio backchannel, and multicast. It has local broadcast using internal audio files. It is 8-watt built-in power amplifier on PoE, and it can work with 15-watt power with PoE plus. It has one line audio output, two controls input, and one control output. It receives HTTP commands. It has audio file storage, again 20 files, total 80 MB, WAV or MP3. It can do the playback programs to repeat the internal storage stored audio files with a weekly timer. As mentioned before, it can be powered by PoE or PoE plus. Next is our ceiling speakers, starting with the IP ceiling speaker, which is a round speaker, the PC580R. It is 20 centimeter or 8-inch dual cone type speaker with metal construction. It receives SIP audio, on-VIF audio backchannel, and multicast. It has a local broadcast using internal audio files or local audio source. It has one audio input, line or mic selectable with a phantom power on-off. It has an 8-watt built-in amplifier with one line audio out, two control inputs, one control output. As a receiving terminal as well, it receives HTTP commands. It has 20 files audio storage with a total of 80 MB, WAV and MP3. Again, with a feature of playback programs, repeat, or weekly timer. The same speaker comes in a square version. It has a similar specification as we presented for the round. And the only difference is the aesthetics, which is square, and the code is PC580S instead of R. Next is a smaller size speaker, recessed ceiling speaker. It is 16 centimeters or 6-inch cone type speaker for in-ceiling installations. It receives SIP audio, on-VIF audio backchannel, and multicast. It has a local broadcast using internal audio files or local audio source. It has one audio input, line or mic selectable, phantom power on off. It has 8-watt built-in amplifier with one load line audio output, two control inputs, one control output. It receives HTTP commands. It has audio file storage of 20 files, total of 80 MB, again, WAV or MP3. It can do the playback programs with the repeat and the weekly timer. And finally, it is PoE powered. In TOA, we are providing accessories to the speakers like a back can, metal back can for ceiling installations. Next, we're gonna present to you some useful and unique functions for these devices. Starting with the key broadcast functions, we're gonna speak about internal audio file storage capabilities, the SIP broadcast, the VMN's integration, the multicast streaming, the two-way communication with SIP protocol, a priority management, and finally, up to 20 predefined broadcast patterns that can be registered using audio files. Let's start by discussing particularly some functions of the devices that are specific to them. Starting with the audio interface, the IP-A1 AF, it uses its line output to connect to a local amplifier. So you can simply put the IP audio interface and connect it to a local amplifier. And then this local amplifier will have a source in that's coming from an IP audio from the network. The second function, it is an IP low impedance amp. So the device can work as an IP low impedance amplifier that simply connects to low impedance speakers. The third function, it is an independent or standalone amplifier, which is simply powered by over Ethernet. Reminder that this device has a sound source line input. So the device can act as independent amplifier and connects to a local or low impedance speaker. Next is the power amplifier, which is coming up in phase 2. This amplifier is a high impedance amplifier that connects to high impedance speakers with a maximum of 12-watt load. So you can define the configuration that you want and the number of speakers depending on their power, as long as you maintain a 12-watt load in total. The second function, which is that this device can share the high impedance speakers of a local amplifier. So this device will become an intermediate device between the high impedance speakers and the high impedance amplifier. Quite an interesting function and specific for this device. So the IP-A1 PA 12H will be inserted and will share the high impedance speakers of this high Z amplifier. And it has a built-in embedded switcher that activates in several conditions. So the IP power amplifier will receive from the high Z amplifier two cables. One is a speaker out, and another one is a control input. And then it connects to the high Z speakers. The internal embedded switcher will activate in the condition where, one, if the DC 24 volt is cut off, that way it switches back to the high Z amplifier, or if there is higher priority broadcasting that should be treated, or when the contact input that is connected to this device is activated, then the switcher will switch back. And finally, when simply this mini amplifier is powered off, then the embedded switcher will switch back to the high Z speaker and takes its input. and streams over the high-Z speakers. In other cases, and in normal operation, it is the IP power amplifier that streams over the high-Z speakers. Finally, the final application, which is this device can simply act as a local amplifier placed in a cabinet or a case. Next is the IP remote mic. The IP remote mic has four functions. The first one is that it can do two-way communication using SIP protocol and individual broadcasting, or it can do multiple broadcast to multiple devices using multicast. The second function is that you can allocate for each for the keys that are on the device. You can allocate a dedicated event such as like multicast broadcasting or group paging. Or it can do individual broadcasting or SIP call. So from the keypad on the IP remote mic, you can dedicate a function for each key. It has also internal sound source playback event, and it can send HTTP commands. This is why I'd like to remind you that this is a broadcasting terminal. The third function that the IP remote has, that it has internal built-in scheduler to schedule chime, sound source, or BGM, or streaming its line input on a calendar. And finally, the final function is the rehearsal function. This device allows you to record, check your recording, and then broadcast it. Next is the IP-A1 PG, the IP paging gateway. The IP paging gateway has three functions. The first is that this gateway is a main system gateway that allows the integration with other systems. Because it has the capability of translating on VIF that is used by VMS systems or SIP into multicast. Additional to that, it has a built-in sound source file storage, and it has a sound source line input. So all these sources can be broadcasting using the multicast that this paging gateway can do. The second function, which is coming up in phase two, it has built-in scheduler that allows you to schedule HTTP commands and help you with integrating with other systems. And the third function is the priority management. So whenever you need to do priority management, you need to have this device in your system. So it will allow the streaming of the highest priority device depending on what you program on the IP-A1 paging gateway. Next is we're gonna talk about the application examples and the way this system can do integration. So starting with the first and minimal standalone operation, where you can use the IP-A1 speaker, connect them to your PoE switch, and use the functions and capabilities of internal audio files and the scheduled timer that is a weekly timer. The next, the system allows you to integrate with SIP phones, with VoIP phones. So you can stream using your SIP VoIP phones when you connect and register these devices to a SIP server. Hence, is each of IP-A1 devices can have a SIP extension, and then you can dial this extension and stream. Uh, since we have in the lineup an audio interface that we talked about and the paging gateway, these devices can be very useful when you want to integrate with analog local amplifier. So you can use the IP-A1 AF, and that way your SIP phone can stream over these analog speakers through the IP-A1 AF. Or if you want to do a zoning or paging. If you want to page zone, then you use the paging gateway, and the paging gateway will translate the SIP into a multicast, and that way you can page your zone speakers. So here I'd like to remind you that the speakers connection is to the network switch, and it's not directly to the paging gateway. This is why you see a network switch in between. Another application, which is an integration with VMS. As we mentioned, the paging gateway converts on-VIF to multicast, which adds to the VMS the group of broadcasting function. So if you have a VMX client, you can integrate and broadcast to the IP-A1 speakers directly, because the IP-A1 speakers can listen to on-VIF audio back channel, can receive audio on-VIF back channel. And in another way, you can integrate with local analog sources using the IP-A1 AF, or you can do the multicast zoning using the IP-A1 PG. Let's take an example of a commercial building that can be a supermarket or a mall, where you might have SIP phones, you might have the IP-A1 remote microphones installed, and definitely you will have like security surveillance and video analytics. When using the IP-A1 system, you can do the following. So in this example, and in such application, we can have a system that can do SIP calls. So you can use your SIP phone or IP remote microphone to do voice audio announcement. If the security camera, which is another case, when the surveillance system detects an unrecognized activity or a security breach in an area or a zone, then an alarm can be triggered. And when this alarm is triggered, you can do a voice announcement using SIP or multicast, and do the voice announcement on the specific zone where there is a breach, and then send your alert messages. Alternatively, you can have a pre-recorded message, a pre-recorded high priority alert message, and the VMS system can trigger it using HTTP command. Finally, other applications in supermarkets, for example, is to trigger specific pre-recorded messages when specific client category or age is detected by the camera in specific zones. In this slide, I'm gonna explain how a complex PA system became and is made easy. So a system with using the IP-A1 system, we have introduced 2 or 3 types of devices. These devices are capable to achieve many functions and integrate with many systems. SIP phones, they can integrate with VMS, as we mentioned before. So all you need is IP-A1 audio interface or an IP-A1 paging gateway, and you can integrate either with existing local amplifier, analog speakers, or SIP phones with SIP servers, with fire alarm system, or even a third-party devices using the HTTP commands capability of send or receive. And as we mentioned before, also additional to that, we can integrate with VMS systems. So all these systems are simply managed and simply integrated using the AF box, the audio interface, or the paging gateway. In conclusion, so this is a checklist that you can find on our brochure, and it presents to you what the system is capable of or what is compatible with. So as we mentioned, it is a SIP on-VIF multicast compatible system. It has a compatibility with many audio codecs. It can do two-way communication or multicast or audio broadcast. And it has built-in file storage. It has a weekly timer for receiving terminals. It has a schedule, built-in scheduler for that is coming up in phase two. We will launch it in phase two. And the horn is IP66, so it's perfectly suitable for outdoor installation. Uh, so in summary, it is a network managed audio system that utilizes SIP devices, able to deliver instantaneous messages. It's flexible. It has a flexible configuration. It offers system expansion capability. So anytime you add a device to the network and your system is in what we say your system is scalable, easily scalable. It has a simplified cabling structure using the CAT category 5 or 6 cables, which makes it a cost-effective system and by lowering the labor cost and material cost. And it can be integrated with all building services and subsystems that we mentioned before. In summary, it's a IP paging and communication system. Like all IP paging and communication systems are becoming more prevalent. The integration with other devices and systems are essential. IP-A1 series allows for various configurations, as we presented before. The integration options are with VMS, SIP servers, remote mics, and standalone operations. All these are available in IP-A1. It is flexible. It is straightforward system to install. Nothing complicated. User-friendly. It applies to various market facilities. Thank you for listening, and I hope you were able to benefit